How's it going? Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about fueling and eating when it comes to training. Now, most people fall into a couple different camps when it comes to training. Everybody's trying to improve their body composition. That's one of the big reasons that people come into the gym. Now, obviously, there's some performance aspects of training as well. Maybe people are trying to hit really, really impressive numbers that is going to require a gain in muscular body weight in order to make that happen. And maybe there's sports performance where you're wanting to fuel properly and get strong for sports. But anyway, from a nutrition perspective, I like to approach this the same way that I approach training for the most part. I believe that there are some foundational principles behind nutrition, just as there's foundational principles behind progressing your training. Okay. And it is beneficial to fit a framework into your life that you can adapt based on ever-changing goals. So instead of writing up the perfect exact plan that you need to do, it's very easy to fall off of that or not know what to do when your goals change. But if you have an overall framework for your nutrition, you can work in whatever it is that you're trying to do through various stages of life, through various stages of training. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about setting up a framework for you that is adaptable not only for lifestyle, but for your training and goals. So one of the big things that I think people get backwards on, So one of the big things that I think people get backwards with on their training, on their nutrition, is they're really thinking about using nutrition to take things away. It's like we're trying to reduce calories, we're trying to reduce body fat, we're trying to eliminate certain food groups, we're trying to maybe eliminate even meals. So if you're doing fasting or something along those types. But I like to switch the idea in your head that you get your nutrition to fuel your body in your training and the things that you want to do. Work, family, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good to be, like starving yourself while you're doing that, right? I believe that you fuel so you can train hard, right? And then you train to perform in whatever it is that you're wanting to do or whatever goal it is that you're trying to hit, okay? So we're eating to fuel your training and you're training to improve your life and your goals, okay? So we're trying to just fuel our performance with how we eat and our recovery so we can get the most out of our training. And if you frame it that way, instead of thinking like, oh, I'm taking stuff away, I can't eat this, I can't eat that because I need to lose weight. Well, there's some valid points to that, but it's just the overall mindset of it is that food is the fuel that you're going to use for your training in your life, and you have to get it right. So let's just talk about some daily nutritional guidelines that I find to be very successful for lifters, regardless of their goals. Number one is hit your protein goal. You've heard this over and over from every single influencer ever. Aim for 1 gram per pound of body weight every single day. You cannot call yourself a serious lifter, serious trainee, or somebody who is serious about your goals and not hit your protein mark every day. It is actually very easy to do. It just takes a few different techniques, okay? And having a framework in place that is going to help you do that. Now, one of the biggest questions that I hear is, okay, well, is it 1 gram per pound of body weight? Is it lean body mass? Is it this? Most people, unless you are well overweight, should just aim for the 1 gram per pound of body weight. Because if you end up overshooting protein, it's not that big of a deal. But if you set your mark at a minimum, so say you're 220 pounds, but you think your lean body mass is 160. So you set your protein mark for 160. Well, what happens when you fall under that? Say you get 145 or 140 for multiple days throughout the week. Well, all of a sudden you're down low. Whereas if you aimed for your body weight of 220, maybe you fall short to between 180 to 200, but you're still covered. So I always think aim for the body weight unless you're like 300 pounds, and then kind of just like reduce. If you're well overweight, if you know you're like 250 to 300 pounds of normal height, just reduce that by like 20% and aim for that 200 to 220 gram mark. In fact, something I've done is like pretty much anybody that is overweight, over 250 pounds of protein. You get filled up on the stuff that is on the good protein stuff, and there's less room in you to eat all the other bullshit. Okay. So the other thing is, a lot of times people will want to be like, oh, I don't want to eat carbs. I want to go low carb. Well, that's all fine and good until it's time for your heavy set of 5 deadlifts after you've squatted 3x5 and you've benched 3x5 really heavy. Not having any carbs in your system doesn't do you very good. So just think of the carbs as fuel. Okay. And if you're trying to lose fat, it does benefit you to limit carbs outside of really close to your training sessions. So dinner, instead of meat and potatoes, it needs to be meat and vegetables. But before you train in the morning, and maybe after you train in the morning, that's where you should get your carbohydrate intake in. Okay. So for fat loss, focus on your pre and post training carbohydrate intake only. Fruit, carb powders, carb drinks right around the training sessions, and then limit them. Doesn't mean you can't have them, but limit them around when you're not on, maybe on off training days, or maybe on like the meals that are far away from your training sessions. Okay. When you are trying to gain weight, gain muscular body weight, it is very beneficial to have a dose of carbs in every meal. And it needs to be good carbs, rice, potatoes, those types of things in decent quantities, just so you're having enough fuel throughout the day to keep the muscle gain and the recovery at a high rate. There's a lot of takes on vegetables and fruits. It is beneficial to have both of those: fiber, digestion, all of that. Okay. Now, water and hydration is huge. So many people live their life chronically dehydrated. So I like to say, okay, you need to drink about half your body weight in ounces per day. And I'm not asking you to carry around 100 and whatever the gallon, however much that is in ounces. I'm not asking you to carry a gallon water jug around, but drinking half your body weight in ounces per day. If you're 200 pounds, drink a minimum of 100 ounces of water per day. If you're like me, who has a wife who likes Stanley cups, she has gifted me one, and this thing is like 44 ounces, and I drink like 3 of them a day. Okay. Very easy to do. Just get a bottle that you like and carry it around and drink a lot of water. Electrolytes are your favorite. So before we get into like the eating frameworks and stuff, know that most of the time, if you're going to have success with a nutrition framework, you're going to be eating a lot of the same things over and over again. And if you can't handle that, if you're the type of person that likes variety, you need to know how to flavor up different foods, try different recipes, try different spices, try different condiments and everything, because beef and rice does get old, but beef and rice, of all the different types that you can make, it doesn't get old. Okay. So just know that as I go forward here. Okay. So here's continuing kind of daily nutrition habits. Number 1 is the compliance is the biggest thing here overall. You have to knock out your nutrition 95% of the time, because if you are 80-20, a lot of people say like be 80-20. Well, that's usually not good enough to make sustained results. It really needs to be more like 95-5. So out of 10 meals, 9 of them need to be good meals. 1 of them you can fuck off with. Okay. So here's what I'm going to suggest. Stick to go-to meal frameworks. Okay. So think things like beef and rice, chicken and rice, meat and potatoes, eggs and meat, eggs and fruit, dairy, some sort of dairy product like Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, and fruit, or with meat, right? And just kind of make some go-to meal frameworks in your head. Meat, vegetable, carbohydrate, rice, potatoes, and all that. And you can just switch flavors throughout the day. And what you do, and it's like always like, well, how do I get 200 grams of protein in a day? Coach, that's so much. Well, think about this. If you have 200 grams of protein to hit, what does that mean? Say you have time for 4 meals in a day, 4 feedings in a day. Well, divide 200 by 4 and you have 50. So you need 4 meals or 4 feedings of 50 grams of protein. And then you're going to set your meal framework up to ensure that that happens. Okay. So I call this the 4x50 meals method. This can very easily, like if you're smaller, this can very easily be 3x40. This could be 6. If you need 200 grams of protein and you want to do it through 6 meals, you can do 3 meals of 50, 2 of 25. You can divide it out even more like that if you want to do the math. Okay. So I highly encourage you to like write down on a piece of paper, okay, I can commit to 3 meals and 1 pre-workout meal or post-workout meal. So you call that 4x50, or you call that 4x40, or you call that whatever it is that you want to do. And that is your framework that you have to hit every day. And then you match your meals to it. Okay. So I'm going to go through a couple examples of what that would look like here in a second. But another thing that really helps from a body composition perspective is called 10-minute walks after meals. This is a stand efforting technique where you get done eating and you go and you take a 10-minute walk. Now, this does a lot. Improves digestion, blood sugar, energy. It gets your step count in. So if you have like a 10,000 step count, if you take 3 10-minute walks, you're going to be pretty darn close to hitting that mark every single time. And you'll be amazed when you actually like follow through on this over the course of a week with like how your digestion goes, how your blood sugar feels, and all of that. Okay. So the other thing is enjoy. Well, everybody likes to, splurge on good stuff. Okay. So plan treats into the diet, like ice cream, Greek yogurt, chocolate, ice cream with your kids, or, whatever it is that you're going to do. I've lost 40 pounds with all of this hybrid athlete training, and I've eaten ice cream like every single night. Okay. It's very easy to fit that in, and it can be a part of your nutrition plan. If you work some stuff like that in, you're less likely to binge and lose everything that you were ever trying to do. Okay. So that 90-10 rule, 95-5 rule falls into place here. Okay. So let's talk even more about a sample daily meal plan when it comes to fat loss. Okay, so here is what I'm talking about from a framework perspective. Now, we're aiming for 220 grams of protein and 2,200 calories. We're getting 60 grams of carbs, keeping that nice and low, and 85 grams of fat. So you can see here's kind of an overall framework. Now, this can change based on what you're wanting to do. But for breakfast, you're having eggs and fruit. Okay. For lunch, you're having ground beef and salad. Pre-workout is a little chicken and some sweetened potato. Post-workout, whey protein and banana. So again, you're keeping some carbs and protein around your training sessions. Okay. And then dinner, steak and steamed veggies. And then a snack at some point, cottage cheese and celery. So you see, like, you're eating a lot of food volume. It's just not a lot of junk, right? But you're hitting a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner, a pre-workout, a post-workout, and a snack in there if you want it. And again, you can change this based on how you want to eat. Sometimes maybe you want to have 2 main meals and then a pre-workout and a post-workout. You can just figure out exactly the framework that you're wanting to eat that fits into your life. Okay. And, for a weight gain type plan, we can do something similar here. It's just a little bit more carb heavy for the most part and keeping fats within reason. So breakfast, eggs, potatoes, and fruit. Pre-workout, you're having a peanut butter and jelly, some electrolytes, and some caffeine. Post-workout, you're having whey, some whole milk, plus a banana. For lunch, you're having ground beef, rice, avocado. It's a little bit more fats in there. Dinner, steak, sweet potatoes, veggies. Snack, Greek yogurt, whey, and berries. So again, this is where you're just adding a little bit of carbs into each meal to increase your calorie intake and allowing some fats to work into the program too, via avocado and some fattier cuts of meat and some peanut butter and some whole milk and, so some whole fat Greek yogurt and all that. Okay. So you're just getting more calories through some additional fats and additional carbs. And what you'll notice between these two is that the food volume overall is very, very similar. Like if you need to get over the idea that if you're trying to cut weight, you're not going to be able to eat a lot of food. That's wrong if you're doing it right. If you set your meals up right, you can eat a lot of food, what seems like a lot of food, and still lose a bunch of weight. If you keep your fats low and your carbs pretty low, you can eat a ton of food while you're losing weight and keeping your calories low and your protein high. Okay. So here's kind of just like some general recommendations on calculating your numbers. So number one is you're going to estimate your maintenance calories. And this is just an estimation. It's not like a hard science. And that's the thing is like the calorie zealots that say calorie counting doesn't work. They want it to be cut and dry, but we're really focusing on your trends. So here is just a general recommendation for doing it. So body weight, you're going to multiply your body weight by 15 for men or 14 for a woman. And then you're going to multiply it by your activity factor, which is 1.2 to 1.8. So if you're fairly sedentary, you need to keep on the lower end of that. If you're more active, say maybe you're lifting 3 times a week, you're playing pickleball multiple times a week, or you're doing a martial art, you walk a lot, you hike a lot, maybe you're active at your job, move up the activity factor scale there. Okay, so an example here is like if you're 205 pounds, you multiply that by 15, that comes out to 3,075. Okay, multiply that by 1.2 on the low end of the activity factor, and you're looking at 3,690 calories to maintain your current body weight. Okay, now if you want to lose fat, I like to be fairly aggressive up front. So you want to subtract 500 to 1,000 calories for a half a pound to 1 pound a week weight loss. That adds up very, very quickly. Okay. And actually, if you subtract 1,000 calories, that'll actually be about 2 pounds of body weight loss per week. So over the course of 2 months, theoretically, you could lose 16 pounds ish if you dial this in properly. Okay. So, just 1,000 by taking 1,000 calories off of that estimated maintenance, you're looking at 2,690 calories as your mark, which is very easy to hit a high protein amount and still eat plenty of good food and not feel deprived at all. You can hit that mark there. For weight gain, you'd want to add 300 to 500 calories for kind of a similar thing, half a pound to a pound a week gain. For some younger people who are very, very skinny, you can boost that up. For most people, this is about as far as you want to go. It'll facilitate enough body weight gain for you to make gains in the gym and keep your performance high, but it's going to keep you from getting too fat, fluffy, and pink too fast. Young guys, this can easily be 1,000 to 2,000 or more calories because they just don't eat. But for middle-aged guy, which is most of you guys that I'm working with, the middle-aged guy or the guy with a desk job and family and all that is worried about body composition, 300 to 500 calorie surplus is more than enough. And then what you have to do is comply with this over the course of a couple weeks. Don't allow any fuck ups. And then if you don't see any change, you just adjust by 100 to 300 calories. Add a little bit more fats in, add a little bit more carbs in, maybe have an extra protein shake per day, and see if you start going in the direction that you're wanting to go. Okay. And then if you're not, address, are you being honest? Are you actually reporting all of this properly to yourself? Okay. And then if your recovery is poor, say it's like, man, I feel like I can't recover from my training. Number one is if you're on a weight loss plan, if you're on a fat loss plan, you probably just aren't going to feel good when you train. That's just the fact. You got to do the best you can. Don't expect to feel like we want to feel as best we can, but don't expect to feel amazing every single time you go into the gym. Because you're in a calorie deficit and that's just the way it goes, right? So get over it. Get used to the fact that you are going to feel shitty when you're losing weight. But there is light at the end of the tunnel when you hit your body composition goals. You'll be feeling a lot better when you do it, okay? And then again, if you're on the other side and you're still kind of struggling with recovery and all that, add post-workout carbs and some fats, okay? Now, just some how we talked about frameworks, we talked about how to set up our calories and everything. How do we actually prep our meals? Here's what I do. I always cook a bunch of proteins, veggies, carbs, everything I have in bulk. So you go to Costco on the weekend, you get a bunch of ground beef, you get a bunch of chicken thighs, get whatever protein you want, pork chops, you throw them out on the Blackstone of the grill or the smoker and you cook a bunch of them and you put them in containers and you put them in your fridge. That way, throughout the week, you have it all right there, okay? And you can store it you can even store it in portion containers, right? And you can make out meals, your beef and rice and avocado. Well, I wouldn't maybe freeze avocado, but your beef, rice, and vegetables, okay? And you put them in individualized containers already weighed out, okay? Based on how many grams of each and what your macros need to be for each meal. And do the freezer method. Say you have 7 of them for days of the week. Leave 2 to 3 of them out in the fridge, okay? And then put the other 4 in the freezer. When you take one out of the fridge to take with you to work, take one out of the freezer and put it back in there, and they thaw out as they go, and that's a way to keep them a little bit more fresh as you go. One of the easiest ways to do it, okay? If you don't have room in your fridge, throw out all of that old shit that I know you have, Okay. Use the food scale for consistency when it comes to measuring amount. If you calculate up that you need like 40 grams of protein, so you need, I don't know, 8 to 10 ounces of meat, weigh that out and then put it in the pack. Same thing with the carbs. Weigh out your cooked food, put it in the individual containers. That way you know, and you can even log it in. And then another thing that's really beneficial is just always have high protein options on deck at all times. So something that I do, I keep just a giant stack of those individual Greek yogurt cups. Dan & Light and Fit Oikos, 12 to 15 grams of protein right there, super low calorie. You can grab like 3 or 4 of them, throw them in your backpack if you're going to have a busy day. And you know, hey, I've got at least 40 to 60 grams of protein covered right there, and you can eat those in 69 seconds. Okay. Fairlife shakes are awesome. You can get them at Costco, an entire case of I don't know how many, but they have like, anywhere from 30 to 40 grams of protein in one Fairlife shake for very low calories. Just keep a bunch of proteins in there. Chomp sticks are awesome. They're high protein jerky sticks. Okay. You can get them in turkey or beef or whatever. Jerky is awesome. Just keep a bunch of high protein snacks around so you can grab and go when you're in a hurry. Hard-boiled eggs are awesome. Make up a couple dozen hard-boiled eggs and at the beginning of the week and leave them there. You can grab 3 or 4 of them at a time. And like, if you got someone like me who spends a lot of time coaching in the morning, and then has multiple meetings, I sneak that in. I'll take a little cooler with 3 or 4 hard-boiled eggs, some taco sauce, 3 or 4 Greek yogurts, and then I need some carbs for a training session. So I'll make a peanut butter and honey sandwich. And you have that, and it's like, man, 4 eggs, that's 24 grams of protein, 4 Greek yogurts of 15 grams per protein, that's 60. And I just took 80 grams of protein with me with very, very minimal calories. Okay. So, and on top of that, you could even, if you have a Fairlife shake along with that, look at you. You're at like 100 something grams of protein, and then you can go have meals in the back end. Okay. So know that there's meal prep options. Do the classic meal prep. It's actually kind of fun. If you pick out a day of the week to do it, you make up a bunch of food, individual container, get your kids involved with it, get your wife involved with it, make it a little bit of an ordeal, a little bit of a weekly tradition. It does not take that much time with like a Blackstone, a stove, crock pot, all that stuff. It's really easy. It takes an hour or two and you're prepped and ready, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to use any mental energy throughout the week trying to figure out what the heck it is that you're going to eat, because it's already all there for you and you can just grab and go. And you don't end up at the gas station eating a gas station hot dog and Doritos. So again, just remember just some general outlines. Like if your fat loss is stalled, reduce fats or training day carbs slightly. If your energy is tanked, increase your post-workout carbohydrates. If you're not gaining weight, start adding more carbs and fats to meals as long as your protein is high. Big mistake that people make is they start increasing their protein. It's like, I can't gain weight, so I'm going to have a protein shake. Well, a protein shake is like 150 calories and 25 grams of protein. Gaining weight requires calories and protein, not just protein. Your protein mark means jack shit if your calories aren't high when you're trying to gain weight. Okay. So add carbs, add good fats to meals. And then you track weekly with your weight, strength, performance as you go along. Okay. If your weight is trending up or down or staying even in the direction that you want, and your strength is going up and you feel like you're performing good in the gym and you're tracking really well, that's how you know you're on the right path. Okay. So just like to wrap everything up here and some final notes. Number 1 is prioritize the protein and your training performance. Okay. Stay consistent before making changes. Be honest with yourself. Were you consistent for like 2 weeks before making any changes? And if not, you need to work on compliance, not on tweaking your meal plan or your meal framework. The only time you should start worrying about tweaking that is if for whatever reason you can't make that framework, you can't make that plan happen due to time or whatever. Then you can change the plan. Okay. But if you weren't honest and you crashed out, don't change the plan, work on your compliance, because that is the number 1 thing that is going to help you reach your goals. Okay. Again, it's following 2 weeks before tweaking minimum. Now, absolutely reach out for help if needed. If you are a one-to-one client, obviously from a nutrition standpoint, we can set up a plan for you to follow. If you are fighting for this on your own, you can absolutely reach out to me to help come up with a plan for you. Now, remember the main principle here. You want to eat to fuel your training. Okay. You want to eat to fuel you and your training. You want to fuel to train, and you want to train to perform, to hit your goals, body composition, strength, activities, everything you want to do. Let me know if you have any questions.